Welcome back to the TWTL podcast, where we use biblical concepts to tackle the issues of today. Currently, our Compass division is going through a series called Subtract. In that series, we examine areas of our lives that need spiritual balance. This week we study entertainment and how it is the next layer of our lives that must be subtracted. We've seen in the devotion how entertainment can distract us from our reality so much that we find ourselves overwhelmed by that reality and without even knowing. We also see the dangerous road it can lead to in our relationship with God. So, for instance, we saw how the Babylonian Empire, in spite of being completely surrounded by the Medes, they decided to throw a party because they saw themselves impregnable, living in an impregnable fortress, and they bought into their own safety and in their seclusion and decided to ignore the reality around them by feasting on entertainment, and that led to their downfall. We also alluded to the fact that the Greeks spent more on entertainment than they did on infrastructure, and the Romans had more holidays than they did workdays. And when you look throughout history, there seems to be a correlation with the advancement of entertainment and the downfall of society. Well, that's the same can be said for individuals. As we allow entertainment to take a greater hold in our lives, we find ourselves in greater peril of when reality starts to close in on us, and we're not prepared for the attacks of the enemy. We're not prepared for the situations in our lives as they happen, because we're so sucked into entertainment that we don't recognize the very real trials and troubles that are starting to befall us. Later on in the video, we saw statistics how the average citizen spends their time. We are becoming a nation controlled by entertainment. So the statistics showed how much time we're investing in entertainment. And to imagine how much time we give to something that's fleeting and inconsequential. And having a little bit of entertainment is not a bad thing. That's not what either the devotion or the video was about. But the amount of time we give to entertainment, something that really in the long run we'll forget probably by the time we reach the end of our lives. We'll look back on our life and say, what did I give ourselves over to? And it's because entertainment it has fleeting value at best, and at worst it completely separates us from that which has value, which is our reality. So today I'm going to share with you a story of how I faced an entertainment consumption issue and how I curbed it. Even from a young age, I really enjoyed television. As I grew up, my taste in television changed, but I also I continued to watch a lot of television, and it just advanced and advanced and advanced. While I was at home with my parents, I had that check in my life that you need to shut the TV off and do your homework. Well, when I got to college, that wasn't a check that was there. So when it came time to go to class, rather than watch the next thing on the television, I stayed at home and watched the television sometimes. Sometimes I went to class, and other times I wanted to stay at the apartment and watch some television. And so I ended up having some classes where I struggled on, but I just barely got by. Well, just barely got by turned into failing. And my parents couldn't understand why I was failing, and of course I didn't tell them that, hey, I was just sitting at the house watching television. Eventually I got a job because I had to help pay for my college, and I lost my job because I'd rather sit at home watching television. everything. So I really became addicted to television. It wasn't stuff that was even, it wasn't anything that was educational. It wasn't really anything that was meaningful. It was just getting sucked into TV. And and obviously that affects you practically, but then it also affected me spiritually, because I remember I really always wanted to watch NFL Countdown, and it always came on when you were supposed to be at church. And so when at college, I would every once in a while skip Sunday morning Sunday school so I could sit at home and watch NFL Countdown. And then eventually I said, well, why go to church when I could watch the first part of the football game and not miss out on that? So I found myself skipping church. And that just compounded and compounded and compounded, where I just wasn't going to church anymore. So now not only is it affecting me practically with school and with a job, it's also affecting my spiritual walk with God. And I'm not saying that this is going to happen to you just because you watch TV. It's because I gave myself over and got sucked into this level of entertainment that everything else didn't matter. I didn't even realize I was failing in some of my classes until I got towards the end of the class. That's how sucked in I had gotten. I didn't realize I was about to lose my job until my boss said, hey, if you keep showing up, you're going to lose your job. And of course, I didn't realize that I'd walked away from God so far until I looked around, and it wasn't just television that was ruling my life as far as entertainment. I got sucked into the college party scene, which is a form of entertainment, and started going to bars and started drinking and started smoking and doing other things. And so my entertainment led to a sinful lifestyle too. So this little thing where I just really enjoyed watching TV and just shutting my brain off after a long day of school, because school was difficult for me for a lot of my life. And so to come home and just escape and watch some television, that was great. But, and as a kid, you know, you don't always think these things through, but I had lots of great influences in my life, and even at times had great prayer life in my life as a child. But I didn't make that connection that I need to give those stressful moments over to God just as much, if not more so, than with television. And it is cascaded, and eventually I found myself failing in school and in job and in life and in my relationship with God. And so what did I do to curb that? Well, eventually I had to come to myself and get past my sins and get past my other addictions that I had cropped up. But then I realized when I got past those things that television was still something there that I really enjoyed, but I realized I didn't need to have it as much. So practically, I just stopped watching television so much. I don't have cable right now. I do have basic television channels, but I tell myself I'm only going to watch certain things. I'll watch the news so I can stay up to date with what's happening in the world. I'm a big prophecy studier, so I know that keeping up with the news is important to prophecy, to see how it's developing over real time. And plus, I just want to be an informed citizen. I enjoy watching PBS. Usually only watch shows that both my wife and I enjoy, or that my daughter and I enjoy. We'll watch kids PBS. And then I like watching Notre Dame football, and that's a tradition that I've had since I was a little boy with my grandfather. So those are the three primary things that I'll let myself watch on television. And even with those things, if there's a family event or something else that's coming up, they take precedent. I would rather the news doesn't come before dinner with my family. We went to the marriage retreat at our local church this year, and it happened during the Notre Dame football game. Well, guess what? I was in a marriage retreat in classes rather than watching a Notre Dame football game, because my marriage is more important than Notre Dame football. Working on my home is more important than watching the news, and spending time with my family is more important than watching the news. Eating dinner with my family is more important than watching a PBS show. My life is more fulfilling because I'm not spending so much time watching television. I still get to have those little moments where I can enjoy some television. I try and fill my television time with at least somewhat educational stuff as possible. But television has definitely taken a back seat compared to what it once was in my life. Now let's turn that back to what we can do in our own lives. Everyone listening to this is facing an entertainment attack. Something is fighting for your time that could be spent on your family, the necessities of life, and God. The amount of time I spent in front of the television could have been spent reaching for and winning souls. So another thing I've done in my life is I've tried to replace that TV time, not just with family time, not just with stuff that helps me practically, but also with reading the Word, prayer, fasting, reaching out to people, teaching Bible studies. We can't just cut things out of our lives. We have to replace it with something of value. And it has to be spiritual value just as much as practical value. One of the things that helped me when I was doing that was I thought back to at a youth camp event, they did a skit where Jesus was sitting on the couch watching television. And Judas comes in with a couple of Roman soldiers and they cart him off to jail. And he says, "Judas, you punk, you ratted me out." And it turns out in that skit that Jesus has been spending the 3.5-year ministry of his life on the couch watching television. Well, the minister at the time used that illustration to drive home a statistical point that by the time we're 30, we'll have watched 3.5 years worth of television. And that's crazy. But today, obviously, with the internet and with other forms of visual entertainment out there, we could do that easily by the time we're 25. Just sit in front of the television for 3.5 years of our lives. I mean, with the statistics of 5.5 hours, 5+ hours a day for a person. Well, that's 1/5 of our day is spent watching TV now. And, if that's the case, then by the time you're 20, you'll have spent 4 years of your life watching television. So I think it was somewhere between 30 and 50 years old, when I was in high school, you would spend 3.5 years of your life. Now, the statistics show that by the time you're 20, you'll have spent 4 years of your life watching television. And that is scary to think of all the waste that could be done. And we have to replace our television watching. We have to replace our entertainment consumption with God consumption and with the practical, meaningful things of life. And to do that, we have to look at entertainment where it is attacking us the most, where the enemy is attacking us the most, and seeing how we can replace, not just subtract, but replace those areas of our lives with more meaningful things, with prayer, with the Word, with outreach, with getting involved in church, doing whatever we can. We'll find ourselves living in reality then. And by living in reality, we'll see situations and issues that we never saw before because we were so locked in on entertainment. And we'll be more productive members of our society, but we'll be more productive members of the kingdom of God as well. So this week, I'm challenging everyone. Give up one method of entertainment in your life that requires more than 3 hours of your time in a week. So if you spend watching YouTube or something and you spend over 3 hours on that a week, consider giving that up. Don't watch any YouTube for the rest of the week. And see what happens when you just give it up, much less try and replace it with something. I would challenge you to try and replace that 3-hour block during the week with prayer, at least. And see how you feel come this time next week. You'll probably be surprised that just by subtracting it, you'll feel better. But if you try to replace it with prayer, think about that 3 extra hours of prayer in your week. I mean, I know this 5 extra minutes of prayer makes me feel good in the day. So 3 hours in a whole week, that can make a big difference in your week from being finishing on a high and then finishing on a low. So I challenge everybody to do that. And also to update you, I was lucky enough, we had bought a house and we are in the process of moving. So my cleaning out my clothes and physical possessions is going quite well because as we're moving, we're looking at not just my clothes, but my children's clothes, my wife's clothes, and other physical possessions of what we really don't need as we move into a new home. And it's awesome because it's our first home that we've bought. We've found a home at a nice, modest price, and we're excited about that. But the process of moving has helped me greatly in subtracting from my physical possessions, specifically my clothing, that I said I'd put myself on. So I can report to you that I've already started examining and have identified lots of clothes. I'm probably going to be half of my clothes are going to be gone, at least by the time I'm over there. And that's an exciting prospect for me because it's less clutter in my life. And just by reducing that physical clutter, I'm going to feel so much better inside and mentally and spiritually, I feel. So I already feel really great about it, just at the prospect of planning for removal. And I can't wait. And like I said, I'm going to keep you up to date on that as we go forth. And try and keep me up to date. Look at our Facebook page, go on our YouTube channel, go on our website, drop us some comments on any of our topics, and let us know how you're doing with subtracting in your life. I've been Chris Ferris. This is the TWTL podcast and the Subtract series. We'll be back next week with our third topic on I believe it is hobbies and activities and what we can do to subtract from those and what we can replace them with. So until then, God bless and keep searching.